What is going on, everybody? Before we do start, I want to give you all a huge thank you and appreciation because we just hit 3K on this page. You guys are the best group on YouTube, and that is not debatable, and I seriously appreciate every single one of you guys coming and watching these videos to get some information every single day. And that is not stopping here because week 3 is officially in the books, so we need to be looking at the players we need to get off the waivers to take an edge over all of our friends, family, coworkers, whoever it ends up being. We need to dominate, and that is how we do it on the waiver wire. As always, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and join the squad. But the very first player we need to be adding off of our waivers going into week 4 is Devontae Herndon, and this is the pretty obvious guy that we want this week. And that's not just because of the 50-point day, the 4 touchdowns, the amazing game, but this is the second game ever for Devontae Herndon in his rookie career. He didn't play in week 1, and we can't really count week 2 either because he was coming off his injury and he only saw 10% of the snaps. So let's get rid of all the fantasy points and the touchdowns and look into the actual stats of why he's a good waiver add. Herndon and Raheem Mostert split this backfield 50-50 in his first real game coming back. Half of Herndon's touchdowns came early in the game, so they weren't just garbage time snaps and usage. Mostert did lead in the receiving game with 7 targets compared to Herndon's 4, but he did steal one of the goal line rushes inside the red zone, which is a good sign to see as a rookie running back because it means the staff already trusts you a decent amount to take some of that role. But he was involved early and often. Now, are they going to put up 70 points a game? Most definitely not, but this game solidified Herndon as a very valuable handcuff to a 31-year-old Raheem Mostert that has never consistently stayed healthy for his entire career. And I do want to point out and be realistic that we do need a bigger sample size from Devontae Herndon to be able to start him every single week, and he's not startable until we see that. But this backfield is going to continue to be split moving forward, and as we know, rookies get more and more involved as the season goes on, especially after bye weeks, so he's a great add if you have an open bench spot to lock up and use for him later down the line in the season. Moving down to the second most important story of the week and the guys you need to be picking up off waivers is Josh Palmer or Quentin Johnson, and I'll get into who you need to pick up in a minute. The reason that these guys are must adds this week is because of Mike Williams' ACL injury, and he's likely going to be out for the remainder of the season, which is very unfortunate because we all hate to see injuries, but it's kind of unavoidable. But looking into these 2 replacement wide receivers, this moves Josh Palmer into the number 2 role and Quentin Johnson into the number 3, at least to start out the season. And you might come in, look at Quentin Johnson and say, well, he was drafted in the first round. They clearly need him for some type of role. He's going to be the second wide receiver option easily in this offense now. But throughout the 3 weeks of the season, he really has not caught any kind of traction. Through 3 weeks, he's had 8 targets and 26 yards. On top of that, reports are coming out and saying that Josh Palmer is going to be the wide receiver 2 option behind Keenan Allen to start out. And that is true. Josh Palmer is going to continue to see the majority of this work as these first couple weeks move on. He did see a majority of the targets, the snap share. Now, we can't really take that into account because Mike Williams was healthy for a majority of this game. And obviously, Palmer is already acting as the wide receiver 3 behind the 2. But when it comes down to the guy I want to prioritize off my waivers season long, that's going to be Quentin Johnson. The reason we were drafting Quentin Johnson in the first place is for this exact reason. If one of these wide receivers were to get injured, he would be an instant replacement guy. And we knew he wasn't going to come out blazing in the first couple of weeks. It was going to take time for him to get acclimated. I mean, this offense already has so many good options. After 2 weeks of inconsistent work and not even being close to startable, people have forgotten why we drafted Quentin Johnson and liked him in the first place and have dropped him or just completely lost faith in him. But if you're in a position to burn a bench spot and lock it up on Quentin Johnson later down the line in the season as rookies get more involved, and especially if there's no Mike Williams in this offense, most definitely go ahead and grab him while everybody else is rushing for Josh Palmer. And that is something I like to do regardless of the circumstances because depending on your league size, about half the league is making the playoffs, so you don't need the absolute best regular season record to dominate in the playoffs. So you're really just setting yourself up for success in the future. But if you are looking for that instant I need points right now player, you're going to want to go with Josh Palmer. Now, I do want to give you guys a good quarterback option on the waivers this week. We've had a whole bunch of issues with this position recently. Aaron Rodgers out for the season, Joe Burrow dealing with injuries, and now Justin Fields has not been playing like Justin Fields is supposed to. So if you need a quarterback off the waivers, Stroud is the guy you need to be picking up. This guy has averaged 40 pass attempts on the season through 3 weeks and has looked really polished considering how bad this offense is and team is as a total. I mean, he's a rookie quarterback coming out here and throwing 120 passes in his first 3 weeks and has 4 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. And the great thing about this is that his passing volume is not going to go anywhere. He saw 44 attempts in week 1, 47 in week 2, and 30 in week 3. And the Texans are projected to be losing pretty much every single game they play this season. So the volume's going to continue and they need to stay close in these games. Now, he does have a tough matchup in week 4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, but he's shown us time and time again he has a decently high floor for a waiver quarterback. And he does have a really young wide receiver core. As these guys get more comfortable and more acclimated into this offense, everything is on the up for CJ Stroud to be really beneficial for your fantasy team. But looking at the next guy we need to be adding off of our waivers is Tajai Spears, and this one is a bit of an ugly one depending on your circumstances. circumstances. But the main story about Tajai Spears is that he came out and outsnapped Derrick Henry 58-38. Now, Spears might not have done a whole lot in his higher snap share, but that's not what's important. The issue here is that once the Titans started going down in their games in previous years, they would keep Henry in and continue to pound that run game. But now they continue to not be the greatest team, and when they go down in these games, Tajai Spears is the guy they put in for Derrick Henry. Now, whether that's because Derrick Henry's getting older, or they want to change the identity of this offense when they're losing, the fact of the matter is Derrick Henry is coming off the field at an alarming rate from what we've seen previously, and Tajai Spears is slowly cementing himself here. And again, this team and offense is not looking amazing. They're going to be down in a lot of these games, so Derrick Henry can't just spam runs every single time he touches the field. And Spears has had a decently high snap share since week 1, seeing 57% of the snaps, which is a sign that the coaching staff already trusts him if he's coming out week 1 as a rookie, seeing this much usage next to Derrick Henry. Now, looking later down the line of the season, he's going to continue to own this receiving role. He might get a couple carries here and there, but if the Titans continue to be non-competitive, I could really see Tajai Spears getting a decent amount of work in this offense and taking a chunk out of Henry's snaps, because why not look for the future if you're already out of playoff contention and you're not playing for anything? So if you have Derrick Henry on your team, your first priority should be to pick up Tajai Spears now, because he has amazing season-long upside, and this backfield has the easiest playoff schedule for fantasy football. And if you have a bench spot you can afford to lock in on Tajai Spears and hold for the rest of the season, most definitely go ahead and pick him up. But the next guy we need to be picking up off waivers here that is a tight end for you guys is Luke Musgrave. I'm surprised how many people are not talking about him, but I'm actually not surprised, and I'll get into why I'm not later. He's only rostered in 25% of leagues. That is just unfair. And as a reminder, tight ends that run at least 80% of routes in their offense historically finish as top 12 guys consistently. And that might be kind of important here because Luke Musgrave saw 83%, and on those routes he earned 8 targets and just got missed on a touchdown, which would have made his fantasy value a lot higher for the people that don't already look into it. But he's getting the exact same usage and opportunity as Sam Laporta. He just hasn't had a big touchdown fantasy game, so he's a pretty sneaky waiver ad that I guarantee is going to be available. And we do have to note that 2 of the top target earners on this team, Aaron Jones and Christian Watson, were not playing this week. That could very much help as much as it could hurt Luke Musgrave. Yes, they might take more targets from this offense, but they also might be able to move the chains more and keep this offense on the field if they all come back. So if you need a tight end option, he is 1000% a guy you need to go for if you can't get Sam Laporta, because if he's not on waivers now, he's never going to be on waivers again. And this is essentially the next Sam Laporta. But Roshan Johnson is another guy we need to be adding again in week 4 here. Despite a terrible matchup against this Chiefs defense and a bad script, he still managed to split carries and receiving with Khalil Herbert, the guy we were drafting as his team's RB1. But Roshan Johnson continues to see more and more and more of a snap percentage every single week. Again, everybody was saying it was garbage time snaps in week 1. He came out in week 2 and it was a close game and got even more snaps, and now in week 3 he still gets more snaps, and it's only continuing. Now, we do have to say that Herbert is still an efficient running back. He hasn't really done enough for us to say he's going to be phased out of this offense. He did have 1 fumble, but nothing for us to completely jump the gun on and say Roshan is the clear workhorse RB1, because he's not yet. But he continues to see an uptrend every single week, and if he could carve out a role in the receiving game exclusively, that gives him a high floor already, and that's the valuable position in this backfield in this Bears offense, because if Justin Fields taking the rushing work, you need some kind of other stipulation to be relevant, especially if this offense isn't moving down the field and getting touchdowns. Is he startable now? No, but moving down the line of the season, he really has a chance to be the most valuable back in this backfield, and as we know, when the season progresses, rookies get more and more involved, and he's already seeing an improvement. So if you can waste a bench spot and lock him in for a decent amount of the season, he's going to return your value a lot. You have to make that decision quick if it's something you want to do, because he's rostered in 50% of leagues, and that's only going to go up. But looking at another running back here, we also have to go pick up Kareem Hunt. And this is because a lot of people are going to look at this game and say, well, Jerome Ford is leading in the goal line work and the usage. Ford to the moon, RB1. But that's just not true. Every single thing we saw from the Browns backfield is exactly what we were expecting. Kareem Hunt was never going to have a factor in this offense. They just brought him in days before their game. And if we look at Cam Akers, he's essentially in the same situation, brought on the Vikings days before their game. And they came out and said, yeah, we're not going to use him in this offense because he needs to get acclimated. And the only reason the Browns considered even starting him in 10% of the snaps is because he already knows this offense a decent amount, but he was never going to have his full workload. And what we saw from this backfield this week is not going to be indicative of the entire season, even in the slightest. So knowing those circumstances, we see Ford with 56% of the snaps, Kareem Hunt with 20, and Pierre Strong with 11, and no, that's not going to continue the rest of the season. Pierre Strong is going to be a complete non-factor and a healthy scratch every single week, and we're going to see Hunt and Ford operate in a 2-man committee. Kareem Kareem Hunt is going to go back to the Kareem Hunt role, getting most of the receiving work and some carries here and there. And Jerome Ford is going to take the yards and likely some of the goal line work on the ground at least. Is Jerome Ford a workhorse running back? No. Is Kareem Hunt a workhorse running back? No. But Hunt is going to be more valuable in this offense and a borderline flex play every single week. So get your hands on him while everybody is stuck on this Jerome Ford 2-touchdown, 15+ point fantasy week. Outside of those 2 touchdowns, he was not efficient. But the last waiver ad we need to be running through and grabbing every single chance we get is the Chiefs defense. And I like ending these videos off with some defense ads. If you need a defense, they're the #1 ad easily. They're rostered in 60% of leagues, so most likely they could be available to you. But they get an amazing matchup against the Zach Wilson Jets, who look like the worst team in the NFL offensively. Last year we used this exact same metric. We were targeting every single defense that went against the Broncos offense because they were just so atrocious. And we're doing that same thing here with the Jets. And the Chiefs get them this week. The Jets put up 10 points in week 2, 10 points again in week 3. They don't look great. And the Chiefs defense itself is already looking a lot better than people expected. Great matchup. Go add them and start them this week if they are available. That is going to finish off this waiver wire ad video. Again, make sure to be subscribed and have your notifications on. And I will see you guys in there.